Hello, I'm Theolyn Cortens. Welcome back to my series, Meditation, Mysticism, Metaphysics and Magic. This is the third episode. If you haven't seen Meditation or Mysticism already, I suggest you go back to those and watch them first. So, metaphysics. What does that grand word mean? I'm going to read you what it says if you look it up on Wikipedia. Here we go. Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that studies the first principles of being, identity and change, space and time, necessity and possibility. It includes questions about the nature of consciousness and the relationship between mind and matter. And by the way, philosophy means love of wisdom. And metaphysics really means beyond physics, what goes beyond, underneath, or around physics. That's not physical. So, once you become a meditator, we could say you are automatically on a mystical journey. And you will also get very interested in metaphysical topics like mind and matter, like space and time. So let's delve into one or two of those. Space and time. When you go into your meditation, you will often feel when you come out that the time has done something a little bit unusual or strange. You either feel that you've hardly been away for a minute, or you feel as though you've been away for hours. So meditators discover quite quickly that time is a bit elastic. It's not quite as rigid as we thought it was according to the clock. And at the same time, there's that word again, alongside that, let's use that phrase instead, alongside that, you will start to notice that things relating to space seem to be a bit different as well. For example, you may not be in the same room as your husband, your daughter, your son, or some person close to you. They may be a long way away geographically, across the town or even across the country, and all of a sudden you feel a slight sense of them being there, or a sense of them wanting you to call them, or the telephone will go and you will know it's them. So the space between you, the geographical space that can be measured in feet and inches and miles or kilometres or whatever, that seems to close in, and you seem to have a connection with other people, and also perhaps not other human people, but we'll go into that later. So that's space and time. How about mind and matter? As a meditator, you start noticing that things that you're thinking about start to appear. This is the underpinning of the law of attraction, which is a kind of metaphysical proposal that what you think about can very quickly occur in your life. So that your mental attitude and your mental focus will have an effect in the material world. So that is a metaphysical principle that the mind affects the material world. And even straight materialist scientists have observed this, even though they don't like the idea of being called metaphysicians. So what about some of the other expressions they had? There was one about necessity and possibility. And that's an interesting phrase, because when you start thinking about yourself as a being that's come into this life with that little acorn that we talked about in the first episode, and there's something kind of got this feeling of being encoded, the story's already there, a bit like, an author writing a synopsis of, oh, this is going to happen to this person, that, and that'll be the end of the story. If we think of that as the necessity of who we are, then a metaphysical question would be, is that predetermined? Is it all in that package, or can it be changed? Are there other possibilities to the way this story can pan out? A bit like those books that were made for children where you get to a certain page and then the reader is told you can choose to go to the next chapter or 2 chapters down the line, and that will take you off on towards a different ending. And a really good movie that deals with this topic is called Stranger Than Fiction. Will Ferrell and Dustin Hoffman and Emma Thompson are in that movie. It's a really interesting movie to watch about necessity and possibility. How much is the narrative of who you are, the encoding of who you are, all tied up in that little acorn, and that's what it's got to be. And this, as I say, is a metaphysical question that anybody who starts meditating and starts asking questions on their mystical journey will come up against. And understanding that for yourself, understanding, well, I was born there and that happened and I had no control over that happening or that happening, and therefore this happened. But now I know that, to what extent can I go and unwind that? And the unwinding image, I think, is really useful, or the winding image. Shakespeare in Hamlet refers to the body as a mortal coil. I've always been interested in that phrase. There's a coil of life, and there's a spinning out of the story. We get that in the idea of the 3 fates. But what if we can unspin a story and respin from a different place? That would be a very interesting metaphysical question. If at a certain point in your life you thought, hold on, I came to that crossroads and I took that choice, and I could have taken that choice, like another movie I can think of now is Sliding Doors. If I took that choice instead, would I be in this position? And is there a possibility that the whole thing can come back together again anyway? These are all metaphysical questions. And somehow becoming a meditator starts to help solve those questions. It might take quite a while, depending on how old you are and how much story has already gone on. But if you dedicate yourself to the idea that you personally need to know why you are here, what is the metaphysical story behind your particular incarnation, if you dedicate yourself to that, then you will find the tools. Meditation is one, astrology is another. Other divining oracles can be helpful, like tarot or I Ching, and they can lead you to a holistic picture, and everything will fit into place like a jigsaw puzzle. And you suddenly see the pattern coming together, even before the jigsaw puzzle is complete. And how long it takes to complete, of course, is another mystery that we don't understand. going back to the idea of spinning, I have often had an image come up for me that we are spinning the time that we require for our soul's purpose in this life. And that actually contradicts the old Greek story that the length of life has been decided before you incarnate, that there's been a cutting of the thread, and that will happen whatever's going on. I have this strong, it's an intuitive feeling that whatever we have to do, we have the time for. Whether that's actually been allocated elsewhere, beyond time, before we came into time, I can't say. But I do recommend you to work with the idea of time in your life on the basis that whatever you have to do in this life, you will have the time for it. And you can spin that thread out of yourself, just like a silkworm spins its silk out of its own being. I think that's a really useful metaphor. Don't be perturbed, don't be disturbed by the idea, will I have enough time? So that's another metaphysical question that is helpful for meditators, and meditators will find it easier to understand and answer it for themselves within. So the end of your life and the beginning of your life have a perfect reconciliation in some way. And one thing can't happen without the other. The beginning cannot happen without the end, and the end cannot happen without the beginning. It's all contained in one. So that's a metaphysical truth, I believe. So you meditate, you get in touch with your soul, and you build your relationship. Your soul reconnects with the divine source from which it evolved. And then you're on a mystical journey, and things start to be revealed to you during that journey. You may meet angels or other spiritual guides, luminaries who may have been human beings in previous generations. And they can all offer you wisdom and extend your understanding. But you tend not to get to meet them unless you go deep in the first place. Because going deep into your meditation allows you to enter those different levels. And in the mystical tradition, those levels are marked out quite precisely sometimes. Teresa of Avila talks about 7 inner rooms, which are very much like the heavenly halls that we find in Jewish mysticism. And then, of course, we have 7 chakras in the physical body. That is a metaphysical map. It's physical, to do with the body, but it goes beyond the body. Acupuncture is also a metaphysical practice. And Chinese medicine generally comes from that metaphysical inquiry. So all of those concepts are telling us something about the relationship between mind and matter, which is why meditation is so useful and so helpful in the healing process. People who are sick, people who are dying, should have a meditation practice. If they're sick, it may bring them back from the brink of death. If they are actually at a time when death is appropriate, then they will have a tool to work with to make that passing easy and comfortable. But it is a case that taking up meditation during an illness will help the illness clear more quickly and greater satisfaction, whether it's broken bones, dislocated shoulder. That was one thing that happened with my husband. He sat and meditated and the shoulder reconnected just as he was sitting there. So metaphysics tells us that mind has a relationship with matter. Mind can affect matter, and taking that a couple of steps back to meditation, then meditation allows the mind a greater capacity by which to have an effect in the material world. If you are looking for abundance in your life, you're interested in The Secret, or you're interested in law of attraction, you will find those concepts much more powerful if you are a meditator as well. Your capacity to call into your life what is useful to you and appropriate will be enhanced by your meditation. So now we've covered meditation and mysticism and metaphysics. And as we've closed with the law of abundance and the secret, you can see that we're well on the way to talking about magic, which will be the last in this series of 4. Don't forget to look at schaefermethod.com to find out more about the meditation and conscious intention system that I teach. Many blessings, and see you for number 4, magic.